This is a documentary on Animal Farm. The author of Animal Farm is Eric Blair. However, he wrote under the name George Orwell. Eric Blair was born in the year 1903 in India, where he was raised. He wrote the novel Animal Farm in England in 1944 to 1945 when it was published. Eric Blair, or George Orwell as we know, wrote Animal Farm under the inspiration of the impact that the Spanish Civil War had on him. The Civil War was between two systems of government, democracy and fascism. George Orwell enlisted in the Civil War, and after the war, he learned of the horrors of Russia under Stalin. He was hunted by the Stalinist forces. He even saw his friend tortured to death. George Orwell died at the age of 47 after failing to treat a lung ailment. Considering the historical context of the novel, we see that after Russia was rocked by two successive revolutions, the Soviet government fell into a regime that used and manipulated socialist ideas of equality among the working class to oppress its people and maintain power. Animal Farm is actually an allegory of the Russian Revolution and the Communist Soviet Union. Many of the animals in Animal Farm correlate to people or institutions in our history. Looking at a short overview of the plot, we see that Old Major knew that he was going to die soon, so he called all the animals together and he told them about his vision of animals being equal and that men are the cause for all their misery. The animals had a plan to rebel. Old Major teaches them a song, which is called Beast of England. It's a revolutionary song. Old Major dies, and Napoleon and Snowball take to the stand as leaders in order to carry out Old Major's plan. Not too long after, Mr. Jones got so drunk that he forgot to feed the animals. The animals took over the farm and came up with their own set of rules, the 7 Commandments, which were painted on the wall for their guidance. Mr. Jones tries to retake the farm but fails. The animals regained control. Napoleon and Snowball compete for leadership. We see that Snowball proposes to build a windmill, which Napoleon was against. Napoleon expels Snowball and takes full control of the farm. We then see that Boxer is sent away to the slaughterhouse. After some years, the pigs are now walking on 2 legs and wearing human clothing. They also get rid of the farm's history by denying that the rebellion even happened. At the end of it all, the animals are seen looking at the pigs having a party with the humans. The animals tried to tell the humans and the pigs apart but couldn't, because the pigs were now so much like the humans that it was very difficult to tell them apart. Let's take a look at the author's presentation on characterization. George Orwell presented the characters in a very unique way. Each character represented something or someone relating to the time of the Russian Revolution in our history. The characters represent George Orwell's view about Soviet politics and the effect of totalitarianism upon the mass people. The animals are used to point out human follies. Let us take a closer look at each character. Old Major. Old Major represents Vladimir Lenin or Karl Marx, who stood for communism or all people are equal. Napoleon. Napoleon represents Joseph Stalin, who represents the emergence of political tyrants throughout human history. Snowball. Snowball is a young leader who is attuned with Old Major. He brings literacy to the farm so that the animals can understand the principle of animalism. Snowball also planned to build a windmill. He represents Leon Trotsky, who in history led the opposition against Joseph Stalin, though he includes elements of Vladimir Lenin. He wanted to improve life for all in Russia. Squealer. Squealer spreads Napoleon's propaganda. He also spreads false statistics pointing to the farm's success. He was used as a representation of the way in which those in power often use rhetorical language to twist truth and maintain social and political control. Boxer. He works all the time. He represents the uneducated and exploited workers who easily believe propaganda without any question. Benjamin is wise and doesn't believe propaganda. Benjamin is also a friend to Boxer. He understood that Boxer was actually sent to the slaughterhouse and not to the vet. Moses is the bird who tells all the animals of a paradise called Sugar Candy Mountain. Moses represents religion, specifically Russian Orthodox Church. They use religious principles to make people work. The sheep, they were naive and loyal to the tenets of Animal Farm. They represent the ignorant mass people who blindly follow their leader. The dogs. The dogs were Napoleon's private army. They killed Napoleon's opponents. They also used fear to force animals to work. The dogs represent Stalin's loyal force, which were like police, used to force people to support Stalin. Mr. Jones is the owner of Manor Farm. Mr. Jones is very irresponsible. He represents the Tsar Nicholas, who represents capitalism. The farm represents Russia. Mr. Pilkington runs Foxwood Farm. He is very easygoing and is Mr. Frederick's bitter enemy. He represents the capitalist governments of England and the United States. Mr. Frederick is the owner of Pinchfield Farm. He is cruel and untrustworthy. Mr. Frederick represents Adolf Hitler, the ruler of Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 1940s. And last but not least, Mr. Wimpler. Mr. Wimpler is the lawyer who Napoleon hires to represent Animal Farm in human society. He represents nations that conducted business with brutal dictators. Let us look at two major themes of the novel. Power is one of the most important themes used in the novel. We see that Mr. Jones exercised power when he used his men and weapons to keep the farm animals under his control. And in their song of the revolution, the animals quoted, "Bit and spur shall rust forever, cruel whips no more shall crack." Another example we can look at is Napoleon and the other pigs who used power to control the other animals on the farm. The pigs control the animals by preventing them from questioning the pigs' decisions. Another important theme is corruption. When the rebellion happened, things seemed as though they were going perfectly fine. However, corruption began to take over the farm. The milk and apples started to get stolen. Napoleon started to change the commandments to suit himself. The animals would forget that the commandments were not read how they were every time the pigs changed it to suit themselves, while some of the other animals pretended as though they didn't notice any change because they didn't want to be executed or expelled. Looking at all this, a revolution may be good, But from Orwell's view, it will soon end up grim because the same persons who overthrow harsh leaders and gain power will soon become corrupt. Let's look at the major conflict. The major conflict is when the animal's desire for freedom and equality is corrupted by the ruling power amongst the pigs. This started to happen after the animals went through with their plan to rebel and chase the men off the farm. You see, just when the animals thought that they would have had the freedom they longed for, they ended up in the very same bondage with that of their own kind, the pigs. Just think about a quote by Lord Acton: "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." The pigs appeared standing upright, and the sheep started saying, "Four legs good, two legs better." Looking at the effectiveness of irony used in the novel, we see that situational irony is used to display the animals as corrupt. For example, the pigs are constantly saying one thing but doing another. The pigs are actually ordering the animals to work. This was very ironic given the fact that they were supposed to be standing for all animals being equal. Squealer tells the animals that Boxer is going to the vet when they had actually sold Boxer to the slaughterhouse. One of the most ironic things to consider is the fact that the pigs changed the commandments to suit themselves. Napoleon made his own beer after suffering a hangover, and the commandments had forbidden animals from drinking alcohol, but was later changed to the animals should not use alcohol to excess. Another situation of irony is the fact that the pigs were saying that no animal should sleep in bed. However, to change the commandment to suit themselves, they added with sheets. So the commandment was now, "No animal shall sleep in bed with sheets." As we all know, it is always a good thing to know our history. Recommending this novel to my friends will definitely help them to gain more knowledge of the governance of the Soviet Union in our history. Another reason why I would recommend this novel to my friends is because they can learn a lot of life lessons through the allegory. Looking closely at each character, they are going to understand lessons on trust, manipulation, oppression, and control.